Hello and welcome to the presentation of my model for the Assiniboine Park Zoo's Red Panda exhibit. On screen there's a photo of the current exhibit. Some good things about it would be the L-shaped boxes, which they like to spend a lot of time in. The logs in there are movable, which keeps the animals interested, keeps moving around, and also the room is climate controlled. When I went there, it was 18 degrees Celsius, which is a perfect temperature. But some bad things about it would be there's no substrate or natural ground, poor lighting, not a lot of shade, fluorescent light. There's no real trees in there. No wall designs. The animals are difficult to see at times, and also there's not very many enrichment items for the animals to enjoy. Now here's a photo of the outside enclosure. Some good things about this one would be that there are hiding places. There's lots of shrubs. There's some L-shaped boxes near the door, which they enjoy. Of course, they need to be able to hide sometimes. There's also a good variety of plants in this enclosure on the ground. But some bad things about it would be, despite having the covers on top, there's a lack of shade still during the day. There are no trees. There's no places to hide that are elevated, and all the ground is pretty much just on the same level. As I already mentioned, I did my 3D model in Minecraft. But I didn't think building just the Red Panda exhibit was enough work, so I decided to remodel pretty much the entirety of Toucan Ridge. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it did come out pretty well. If we make our way over here, we get to my remodeled Red Panda exhibit. As you can see, it looks quite different compared to the current one. On one side, I added this artificial rock face for a change in elevation. I also added this green design on the walls to replace the current design, which is just regular green paint and doesn't look natural at all. As you can see, I added different types of grass into the enclosure to give it variation and a big upgrade from the concrete floor that it currently has. I used scaffolding to recreate the L-shaped boxes, and I also repositioned them so they're at different elevations and in easier positions for the viewers to see the animals. Another addition was climbable trees with leaves, something that the enclosure currently does not have. Red pandas are an arboreal species, meaning they like to spend a lot of time in trees and they're critical for their survival. I changed the type of lighting in the enclosure to something that's more natural and not a fluorescent light. On one side of the enclosure, I also added leaves below the lights to add some shade in certain places. Finding enrichment items in Minecraft was kind of difficult, but I used this boat as an enrichment item for them to play in. I also attempted to make something like a hammock using chains and slabs hanging from the ceiling. One other thing that I liked about the enclosure at the zoo was that they tried to insert bamboo or a similar plant to bamboo inside some of the logs, so I attempted to recreate that here. And since everybody is definitely wondering by now, yes, I did add foxes into this exhibit to replicate a red panda. I know they're not the same thing, but they kind of look like it, so. Outside of the exhibit, I also added a sign about the red pandas. This could display information like their diet, evolutionary history, and things about the conservation of the species. I also added a chest to represent a donation box to help support red pandas. Red pandas can be excellent money makers, mainly because of their cuteness. People are likely to donate to the cause of supporting red pandas, and also red panda themed items like shirts, stuffed animals, and keychains and so forth can be sold in stores. That concludes the inside part of the exhibit, so if we walk through the rest of Toucan Ridge, we'll go to the outside part. This is the outside portion of the redesigned Red Panda exhibit. One of the things that was changed was the shade. I moved the placement of the blue shade covers in a way that would provide more shade for the animal, especially on sunny days in the summer. I added more L-shaped boxes for the red pandas to hang out in, and I also positioned them in ways that would be easier to see for the people, but also privacy for the red pandas. I added coniferous and deciduous trees into the enclosure. I also added a raised level of dirt and a stone face to add some different elevations into the enclosure. I added fallen logs onto the ground, logs that could be moved around by zoo employees to keep the enclosure interesting. As for enrichment items, I kept the hammock that was already there. I added a bell that makes noise when touched, and I also added another boat for them to sit in and play with. One of the main goals with this enclosure was to make the animals more comfortable being closer to the people. I deliberately placed more interesting features closer to the people so that the animals would like to be there. On the outside, I placed a sign identical to the one on the inside enclosure displaying information about the species. And with that, we've reached the end of my 3D model presentation. I hope some of the information that was put in here was helpful and informative, and I hope that some of my ideas can contribute to helping our red pandas. Thank you.